Good evening and welcome to Smart Entrepreneur. We have met a variety of individuals. We have met people from enriched by the insight. We came across a person that I have known in the past for entrepreneurship in leading universities. Interaction a couple of years ago, and I walked away from that with a great respect for what he was trying to do. So without further ado, let me welcome our guest tonight, Apoorv Bamba. Welcome, Apoorv.
Thanks, Nalin. Thanks for having me over.
So you're one of those digital nomads who shifted to Goa during the pandemic. Life must be easier there.
Not sure easier, but better, I would say. And better is not always the easy option, but yeah, better air to breathe and more nature to look at. Yeah.
So I'm going to get through my the question that caused me most confusion when I read your profile. I'll get through that first so that then we can discuss easier matters. So in your
Sure.
profile, you say the most important things that you've learned in life, you learned outside the classroom. Yet
Yeah.
you build curriculum for entrepreneurship, which is partly in the classroom. So my question
Yeah.
is, and I've always been confused, you can teach business to somebody, but can you teach somebody an entrepreneurial mindset in a classroom?
Yes, I think that's no. Thank you for actually that's a very challenging question. So I'll just take the first part first and then come back to the second part, right? So I think for me the biggest learning, I was one of those education rebels, studied in Delhi University, never understood why the professor was teaching because neither he or she was motivated nor was I motivated, right? So, and I always wondered there has to be a better way to do this, right? And luckily got privileged enough to travel a lot at a very early age. So, part of a couple of non-profits and then realize, okay, this is where true learning can happen. When you travel, when work with people who don't look like you, who challenge your thinking, you basically that's where the mindset get developed, right? This whole myth of entrepreneurial mindset, for me it is a global mindset. It is when you start looking at things beyond your own reality, and that's where those ideas come in. So that's the first part, but the second part is, I think it is ironic that I went back to classroom, but the whole intention was that can we deliver something that is different, but not different for the sake of being different, but something that's more experiential. So even now when we deliver entrepreneurship curriculum, or when we design entrepreneurship curriculum, the big element we do is on ground learning and out of classroom doing. So if we are, if you're taking them like a concept like design thinking, then we would actually get them to get out of the classroom and immerse themselves. Okay, if you're in Chandigarh, but what is out there? How many times have you actually gone and spoken to the people out there, right? So I think, and the last bit that you asked, that can you actually teach someone? And I've done a lot of research on it. So what came out of that research was you can teach every bit of entrepreneurship. One thing cannot be taught ever, that's risk taking. That's sometimes something that's in you or it's not in you. No content can ever teach you how to take a risk. Yeah.
So you've been doing this over a long time, and you're a serial entrepreneur yourself. You've tried and done many things. Do you find a mindset shift? Let's just talk about India for a moment. In the expectation with which people try to get into entrepreneurship today versus what it used to be earlier, is there a shortcut or that jugaad has caught on, or everybody is in some kind of a treadmill at a speed that we know is not possible?
Yes, I think I compare it to the Bollywood industry in the 90s, right? You would
Mhm.
see a star and then you think, I would want to be an actor or an actress, right? So you'd move to Bombay. I think that's what's happening in entrepreneurship right now. Every college student, someone who's growing up sees a Flipkart, sees, these stories now with Byju's and, everyone. So I think they don't think it's easy, but they think everyone can do it, which is, I think, it has pros and cons, right? When you start believing that. So I think when then students venture into entrepreneurship, I think they don't realize the effort it takes to become an entrepreneur, right? They, as you said, right, they feel like there's some quick password somewhere, and which
Yes.
obviously which obviously then aligns into the millennial mindset, right, of instant gratification. And entrepreneurship is anything but instant gratification.
True. So it's interesting you say that. That's my experience as well. They seem to think that there is some code, something that we are not telling them, because it couldn't possibly be so hard. Because they have this glamorized, romanticized version of entrepreneurship, where everything is supposed to come as a birthright and come to them, and then they get almost horrified that it's so tough and they have to do everything themselves.
Yeah. No, I think I agree, and I've been in so many conversations like that. But yeah, yeah.
So when we were chatting pre-show, it was coincidental or ironical or whatever you call it, that after 2 years of, I think that's 2 years ago when we met, both of us are doing something similar in different places. In Indonesia, I run Orbit Future Academy, which is skills for future jobs. Everything we teach should lead you to become a job creator or a successful job seeker. You are doing something similar now. What is it you're doing?
Yes, I think so. When we did a lot of work in entrepreneurship, we realized that we are only impacting a very few, right? Like a basic few. So we said, but there is something deeper, as you said, an entrepreneurial mindset. So we said, could we, and we started building a module called Entrepreneurial Employability. So we did a lot of work on understanding an entrepreneurship linked to employability. And I think that's another myth. Employability does not necessarily means employment. It means, as you said, right, you become a successful job seeker or you become a skilled job seeker. And that is what now we have done is, we've obviously understood the pandemic and how the gap that's widened, right, between between those who have and between those who didn't have, and now they don't even have anything, right, the tier 2 tier 3 talent. So we realized, can we build an equal opportunities platform where students actually focus on content that makes them employable rather than content that makes them learn. We realize there are enough people who will make them learn. We are not the experts in that. What we can do is, what we also talk about is content that can make you employed. So
Okay.
each course or each content piece on our platform is linked to an opportunity, either an internship or a project or a full-time opportunity.
So
If
give
you
me an
do it,
example. Give me an example
so
of content.
so what we do is, so where is this content coming from, right? That's the question. So what we do is we partner with scale ups or startups who have grown massively well. So we ask them, what are the job roles you're hiring for? So we get all the job roles, we get their culture documents, and we reverse engineer that into courses. So let's say a startup is hiring for data science, but exactly what language, what task, and we turn that into a course. Now there's a data science student in a tier 2 engineering university who's studied data science but does not know how to practice it. He or she does that course, which takes almost 6 to 10 hours of their time. And if they do it well, they directly get linked to that opportunity. And now the startup also feels, oh, this student is not any random data science graduate, but also knows my company already and knows my problem statement already. So that is sort of the thinking we're going after. We're taking real opportunities in the world and turning them into employment courses.
Yeah. Interesting. We are doing something similar, but not just with startups, with the industry at large in Indonesia. But the Indonesian government is doing exactly what you're doing. And it's one of the largest internship programs in the world and
Okay.
among the largest public private partnership skill up programs in the world. It's called Campus Merdeka, and it's just revolutionizing skilling up and education in that country. It's amazing.
No, definitely,
So,
I've heard great things. Yeah.
as I listen to you, and you probably have met thousands of entrepreneurs. So you probably met thousands of entrepreneurs across various geographies, and some geographies people have maturer platforms and maturer thinking, maturer markets, maturer products. India, we have all kind levels, and we need that too. But when you look at all these entrepreneurs, what are the one or two traits that you look for? For example, you're running an accelerator, right? You're running a
Yeah.
virtual accelerator globally. So when you
Yeah.
decide to take somebody into the acceleration program, you're virtually looking at the person like an investor,
Yes.
because you're going to invest time and effort
Yeah.
into getting them to go from point A to point B, hopefully
Yeah.
5, 10, 15x.
Yeah.
So what do you look for in that entrepreneur? What is it that attracts you?
Yes, I think for me, and I think it's the same concept I've started following in stock investment, borrowing it from this book called Psychology of Money. So essentially, what it looks like that they should be passionate about something to solve. We are not looking at ideas because ideas can change. Ideas you can coach. You can't coach the motivation to solve a problem, right? And similarly, when you're investing in stock, if you invest in something that you truly believe in, you'll hang on to it even when things are up and down. So similar concept, right? So we look at people, and it's very difficult to judge. We get it wrong as well, but we try to go deeper into why would they want to solve that problem rather than going deeper into what is their idea, right? So that is something that we really so what we call the why, Simon Sinek calls the golden circle, the why of everything. So we really delve deeper into the why, and we really ask them a lot of questions. Okay, why this problem, why not any other problem, right? And then obviously we do a skills map. Do they have the right skill set, not the expertise, but the right skill set to actually start solving the problem? Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting because entrepreneurs don't think like that, right? They jump into a situation and then try to figure out how to do this. And
Yeah.
I often tell them the same thing that between you and the founding team, some essential skills should be mapped out. Otherwise, it won't work in the long term. So, when you run these acceleration programs in the pandemic, and we've heard all these stories of how much money is flowing in, etc. But regardless of that, because I don't go by those headline numbers, because we all know what the facts are. Regardless of that, what are the sectors that are exciting you right now or exciting your end customers on the other end of the spectrum?
Yes, I think one of the biggest industry which both of us are in, right? Like the one industry that was not ready for the pandemic was the education industry, because they ran it as these traditional units where there'll be a university, there'll be a classroom, and you have to come in the classroom, and one teacher will give you all the knowledge. So I think they were the massively hit because when they had to go virtual, all they could do was Zoom or Microsoft Teams, right? That became virtual learning, but that's not real learning. Like, so I think that has been the biggest sector of innovation, which is edtech. And as you say, there are some massive funding happening, but those are only for the few on the top. But even at the
Sure.
ground level, we see a lot of innovations. When we talk to students, when we talk to early stage, they are very fascinated and interested in doing something about education because they've got now a faulty education in the pandemic themselves. So they're like, how can I? So the problems you face, those that's what hurts you the most, right? So I think we have seen edtech as one, and the second I would say is the whole fintech boom, right? With crypto. And I think I always say watch an IPL and you know what's happening in India. The ads that come up, right? The ads have changed from Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and now only we see all the fintech apps, advertising themselves, and obviously Baiju being the team jersey, right? So I think for me, trends are right there, and that's what we're seeing. Even the only difference being that young people are still able to start an edtech venture. In finance, you need deeper knowledge. So I think unless you are very deeply involved in finance, it's very difficult to start a fintech startup at an early age. Yeah.
That's true. You make interesting points that resonate with me. I hear so much in edtech, and sometimes I have to remind people that in edtech, education comes first, tech
Yeah.
comes later, and
Yeah.
tech is only there to enable. Don't get so caught up in the tech because ultimately it's a human being you're teaching. How much
Yeah.
innovation are you going to do? All of you going to do to pound one child's mind? And for God's sake, don't call tutoring edtech. Uh, After 8 hours of study, then you get the child home and torture them for 2 more hours, and now say instead of one teacher you'll have two, and run an ad
Yeah.
saying that is the future of education. It's a joke. It's
Yeah.
they're basically preying off a social dysfunction.
No,
So
definitely.
yes, the move towards skilling people up and doing short-term courses that are outcome based
Yeah.
rather than doing a course that will get you no outcome and the university sells you the next degree. You do 12th, then
Yeah.
you do graduation, then you do post graduation, then you do your masters, then you do your PhD. It's a vicious cycle. Nothing comes out
Mm.
of it.
Yeah.
Some of it is required for people who have that bent of mind, but otherwise really not
I
required.
think it's overcrowded now. I think it's overcrowded, as you said. Yeah.
And I find it amazing, Purvi, that all these edtech companies and all these conversations they have, because we run a funding platform, and I see so many edtech companies come and uh, rightfully boast about what they have built. None of them have actually spoken to a student. In all the conversations, that are there in education conferences and edutech seminars and edutech funding, the end customer, the student, is never on the table. Some old people like me are deciding what a 8-year-old person should learn, how, with what gadget, and when, where, etc. It's almost ironic. So I think there is a bit of excess and flab there, and there'll be a shakeout. Let's see how that goes. But coming back to what we were talking about in entrepreneurship, I know you are a very accomplished public speaker and you speak at various forums, etc. I know you run accelerator programs, design entrepreneurship courses at various universities across the world. How important is it for founders to have good public speaking skills?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. A lot of students actually ask us, right? Especially when, like, for example, I'll give you, we did a project in Ladakh, and some of the ideas were amazing. Some of the entrepreneurs were amazing, but we also realized that, I think the speaking skills really come into fore when you have to actually pitch your idea to an investor or to an external. I think it's not needed to get customers. So if you're a customer heavy idea, you'll get all your customers. But I think if you need that venture capital, if you need that funding, fortunately or unfortunately, there is still this bias towards, oh, you speak fluent English? Can you, project your idea in a great way? So I will actually put in not only the spoken communication skills, but also presentation skills, right? How do you present your idea? Because I think there's so many, right? As an investor like yourself, you have a fatigue. You must be getting 1,000 pitch decks in a day. So how do you make your pitch decks? And so I think that communication skill has become really key. But for me, I think you can still bypass the verbal communication, but you really can't bypass actual presentation, like email writing or like actually presenting your idea. That's something it's a must have to be successful in today's age.
Yeah. So I often advise entrepreneurs, that especially in countries where English is not the primary language, that learn English as a skill, not as a language. You don't have to be Shakespeare and write English, but at least learn it in terms of understanding and speaking, because whether we like it or not, the largest pool of investors, industry, etc., speak that language. That's the business language.
Sure.
So we try to push that as learning a skill rather than learning a language.
No, that's great. Yeah.
So I think we'd had a minor second of a blackout there.
Yeah.
When I come back to India, I always have these sudden new experiences, because in Indonesia we don't have any blackouts, we don't have power cuts. So other than the US, you have observed so many startup ecosystem: Israel, South Africa, India, etc. Which startup ecosystem you found the most vibrant or the most
So I think, Nalin, we have lost you. So, but I'll continue speaking as your advice in our pre-show. So I think the startup ecosystem that I found the most vibrant by far, and you use the word vibrant, right? So I think there are two. One is definitely the Dutch ecosystem, the Netherlands. I think they have found this magical way to attract amazing entrepreneurs across Europe, right? Even across globally, right? Like they have this one of the easiest startup visas to get. So what made Silicon Valley? That not only that US entrepreneurs could be thriving there, that any entrepreneur could thrive there, right? And that is the mind shift. Even in Netherlands, any entrepreneur can thrive. Not only a Dutch entrepreneur can thrive, right? To start I think that visa regulation we hardly talk about, but it's very, very important. And then that makes it a truly global entrepreneurship ecosystem. And if you had to ask me something to look out for, then I would definitely say the South African ecosystem, because South Africa is the hub to the African market, right? And Cape Town ecosystem is attracting massive amount of investment, massive amount of innovations are coming out of there. And yes, South Africa in itself might not be a good market, but not a big market, but you can launch into South Africa and get access to this unexplored, uncharted African territory. So I would always pick these two, the Netherlands or the Dutch ecosystem and the South African ecosystem.
And within India, any state's ecosystem that is exciting?
So
Leaving
I think,
aside Bangalore.
yeah, so I think I would go say beside Delhi or Bangalore, because those are the ones been there, done that. I think the one that currently that's really exciting also is a Goa ecosystem. And I think I'll tell you from why, but maybe not many entrepreneurs, but the startups that are moving here, companies that are moving here, able to attract the best talent. And that is why Bangalore also became so amazing when it did, right? That you were able to attract the best talent. So if you actually pick the trends of the last 2 years, the number of companies that have put satellite offices in Goa has gone massively up. Why? Because they want to attract the best talent. Because after a while, you have a great idea, you have your customers. The only way to grow is that you attract and retain amazing talent. So I think this ecosystem has been thriving. I don't know how long will it thrive for, but it's definitely thriving right now.
Okay. I have found the ecosystems in Kerala, Assam, uh, to be equally vibrant. I am not much exposed to Goa. I'll definitely touch base with you and learn a little bit more about that. The, when you are dealing with companies in the accelerator, primarily they are looking to not only grow their business but also find investors.
Yeah.
And the way entrepreneurs approach investors or look at investors has changed over time. Now, many people almost think of investment as a birthright, like it should be in the constitution, like a fundamental right. So,
Yeah.
when you are advising these startups, now they have come for acceleration, so they obviously have some traction and they are not that early stage. But
Yeah.
what do you tell them about how much to ask, how much to give? Because they always struggle with that. Between the greed and the need, they're always
Yeah.
struggling. How much to ask, how much to give? What's your advice to them?
Yes, I think it's a very difficult question because, as you would know, every startup is so different. But if I had to still give a blanket statement, my first intention always is to push the startup or the entrepreneur to bootstrap till the time it doesn't start hurting the business. So again, I'm not saying hurting the entrepreneur. I think usually entrepreneurs want to raise money when it starts hurting them, right? Like when it becomes a little more painful, you can't buy the clothes you want to buy, you can't eat at the places you wanted to eat, right? So I always push them, and why I do that is because I feel till the time you don't bootstrap something, you don't understand its true value, right? And if you don't understand the true value, you don't know how much money to ask for. Either in your greed, you'll get maybe peanuts, and you'll give away too much equity, right? Or you'll keep going after this dream figure that no one's going to pay you. So I think that's why my first intention always to push them to the limit where they can bootstrap. But obviously, I do understand certain ideas, certain startups do need the funding to go to the next level. Otherwise, someone else will be coming with a similar idea, right? So I think that, but I think when it comes to valuation, for me, it's still an art. I think there's very little science behind it, especially in your first fundraise. After that, it becomes easier. But in the first fundraise, I think it's about what you can pitch. I always give them the Steve Jobs lingo. Pitch the vision, because you've not built much yet. Yes, you have your own credibility. Maybe you have some early customers, but pitch the vision, because it's that vision that will translate into valuation. Not what you've currently done will translate into nothing. Because if people start giving you money on what you have currently done, you'll get very little and you'll give away a lot.
That's very true. That's very true. I also advise them to ask for money only up to the next milestone, something significant. Every company to become a global company may need $1 billion, but just like you don't eat all the 2,000 calories of the day in breakfast and then not eat the rest of the day, you don't raise all the money at once. You do it in small bite-sized pieces. Because entrepreneurs struggle a lot with that. So let's talk about something else. We talked about what you look for in an entrepreneur when they walk through the door. Now, we don't often speak about this because we are generally trying to be motivating to people. Not me, but generally most people try to remain motivational, etc. But what is that something that is off-putting for you for an entrepreneur? The entrepreneur comes and something that is slightly off-putting for you.
So I think off-putting, I don't know if that's the word, but I think sometimes I get it where they're coming from, but I think when the whole conversation turns about money, right? Even in that first conversation, I can see that they're only doing it because they want to make money, and which is okay, because maybe their context is that, right? They understand that and they realize, okay, this is business and I need money in my life. And the second thing, that it's such a misleading statement any entrepreneur will tell you, because they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be my own boss. And I tell them that is not the truth. When you become an entrepreneur, every customer is your boss. Yes, you might think
employee.
And every employee.
And every shareholder. Actually, you are the lowest. You're really right at the bottom, at least in early stage, right?
So I always give them that example, that who do you think will make the customers happy? Because if you don't have customers, you have nothing. So even if you've made the best product, if the customer is not happy and they're complaining, you have to solve those complaints. And that's what, so don't think of entrepreneurship as will make you quick money or you'll be your own boss. Those two are myths. I mean, yes, money is a byproduct of being successful in entrepreneurship. But till the last date, you are an entrepreneur, there will be a boss above you. Maybe they'll not be called a boss, but they'll be your boss. Yeah.
So, we are coming to the end of the show, so I'll ask you a few final questions. So, I have known you through your company, Ingenious Faces, and I have seen the quality of the work you do and kind of people you bring to the table. Very impressive. Now you're doing something different on this skill up, employability, connecting startups, etc. to it. So, if I were to ask you as an investor and you as an entrepreneur, what's your vision for this business?
So I think our vision is very simple. Our vision is equal opportunities to every person who's not in a branded institution. We put it like that, right? So we want to become a platform full of working opportunities, not learning opportunities, working opportunities for every single person who's willing to put in that time to build that skill. It has to be skill-based outcome, not knowledge-based outcome, but skill-based outcomes. I think that is our vision, that every young person who in the future enters college or maybe drops out of college has this another platform to say, it doesn't matter if I have a degree or not. If I do these 2-3 content pieces together, I'll still be able to build the career I need to build. Yeah.
Well said, well said. So that brings me to my final question. You have done so much, achieved so much, traveled so much, helped so many people, built so many businesses, etc. What keeps you balanced and sane? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? What do you do?
I think it was traveling before the pandemic, which obviously got curtailed. But I love traveling. I love going meet people. And that's, for me, it's yoga, right? It's that getting away. And luckily, my work allowed me to travel. So every time we traveled for a project, I would always take 2 days off because I always like to meet with the local. And there's a difference between tourism and travel. So when you actually travel, you meet the locals, you talk to the locals, you learn so much more. And for me, that was a meditative place to be. And
So any specific advice to entrepreneurs on mental health? Because it's a big issue nowadays. It's always been, but it's getting more prominence now.
I think first thing is, don't be proud of saying I'm working 9 to 9. I don't think there's pride in it. I think that means you're doing something wrong. I'm not. Yes, there'll be some days you'll have to put in that extra hours, but if you have to do it every single day, I don't think that's a healthy way. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs wear it as a badge of honor. I'm working 12 hours a day. I don't think that's sustainable. I've also done it, but I don't think it's sustainable. I always say find a hobby that takes you away from your work. It could be writing, it could be reading, it could be going for a walk. I think the earlier you find that hobby that makes you disconnect from your work, you'll be far more productive and you'll be far more happier building the venture you want to build.
For you, it's traveling. It's not golf or something like that.
No, so I think traveling, but apart from that, in the pandemic, I've really picked up cycling. So cycling is the other thing, but that's a very new hobby, almost like it's a pandemic hobby. I always call it a pandemic hobby.
Yeah. Back to childhood hobby.
Yeah.
Apoorv, it's been absolutely wonderful to have you. A lot of your thoughts, ideas resonate so well in today's world and are so practical for entrepreneurs of today. Thank you very much for being on the show. I wish you the very best, and I hope to catch up with you soon again. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you so much for having me and wishing everyone a safe and healthy Diwali.
Thanks, Apoorv. All the best.